Hey, Sens fans, welcome to today's episode of the Senstennial Podcast. Today, we're really excited to be joined by Sportsnet's own Kyle Bukauskas. So, Kyle, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm great. How are you guys doing? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate you coming on. And we kind of want to start off with all our guests that we have on for the first time. We like to go back. And so we want to start off by asking you really how your journey to getting into this job and becoming a rinkside reporter began.
Yeah, it's funny. I thought I've always in my mind as I've, you know, thought back to growing up and when the interest first started, it was kind of around high school. Um, is when I remember of like really thinking of having an interest in pursuing something in this business. And it was during the pandemic. I went back home for a number of months, just 'cause nothing was going on out here. It was good to be back. Like my brother was back home, and it was 3-4 months. Just my parents are still in the house that we grew up in. So it was like a great opportunity just to go hang out there with family. Don't see them as much anymore with me being all the way out here and then back west. And anyway, so one night we found like old kind of home videos that we were still able to watch back, and there was a video clip of me when I don't know if I was 6 or 7, and I'm interviewing like a buddy of mine at the time that they grew up down the road. I'm interviewing him. He was big into we were big into like mountain biking as kids, and he
Mhm.
was big into dirt biking. I remember I'm interviewing about him about dirt biking, which I of course had zero recollection of until I saw that. And so at that time, I was like, "Oh, I guess that's where the spark maybe first started. I just hadn't realized it then." But yeah, I went, as I got older and through high school, as they say, is when the real interest started to pick up. And I got to intern at a local radio station in my hometown, and that was my first taste of the industry. And went to school for broadcasting for 2 years at the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology in Calgary, and had such a great time there. And just a real kind of right place, right time. Happened to meet the right people towards the end of my 2 years there, and a connection on campus. Um, a woman that I got to know and was working with. She was working in the athletic department at the time. Her dad back then was the news director at Sportsnet, so that was kind of my in at the door there. And at the time, I thought it was just an opportunity to network, to pick his brain. He wanted to see my demo reel, and I thought just to get like some feedback from someone in that position would be like the coolest thing, and so impactful at that time, because you're just looking for any type of guidance that you can, particularly from people that are in the business. And anyway, and it kind of parlayed after a while to an opportunity to go out to Toronto to interview for some type of position out there. I'm not even sure they kind of knew what the role would be for myself,
Right.
but that was kind of over the course of the summer, waiting to hear were they going to take a chance on me, what was it all going to look like. And that was 2 months of just like trying to be patient. But as time went on, you thought, oh, okay, have they kind of moved on here? But no, they said, all right, we want to move you out to Toronto and get you started. And so I did. And that was, yeah, October of 2013. So 11 years this past month. And
Wow.
didn't start on air right away, of course. Went through the different phases of as they got built their comfort for me. And I'd go out in the field and shadow other reporters at Sportsnet and do kind of, they would file a story and I would file my own version that would just be watch back internally and receive feedback that way until they were finally comfortable enough putting me in front of the camera for the first time. And then over the last 11 years, it's just kind of from year to year, season to season, had the opportunity to try new things and to be put in different roles. And when I first got to Sportsnet, like it was about what 6 weeks after I started, the news come out that Rogers had acquired a 12-year
Mm,
rights deal for the National Hockey
right.
League. So I didn't have a clue that was, of course, going to be any part of my future with my employer until after I had got there. And even then, I had no thoughts or visions or really even aspirations of working something like being a rinkside host for NHL broadcasts. He thought of Hockey Night in Canada, like that was its own thing. Like that was where the pros hung out. Something far beyond anything I had a chance at achieving. So I really love the idea of reading highlights on the desk and stuff. Like that was initially kind of where my passion and pursuit was. And over time, I've just kind of fell into the role that I'm in now. But really grateful for how it's all turned out.
Yeah, and speaking of roles, you've recently taken on another new role within Sportsnet by joining Elliotte Friedman as a co-host of the 32 Thoughts podcast. And I'm interested to hear how that came about and how it's going, and if you had any difficulties transitioning from your sort of ringside role to a more audio medium.
Yeah, it all has been different, and how it came about, as I've said, in previous times here, since we got going. Like, of course, you hate the circumstances around it, but it was about mid-July this past summer. I got a phone call one morning, and they just saying, "Look, something happened, and there's going to be a change. The podcast needs a new co-host with Elliotte, and would you be interested?" And they kind of left it where give it some thought and let us know in a couple of days if this is just something you would at all consider. But in the back of my mind, of course, you're processing like, holy smokes, like what the heck just happened here?
Mm-hmm.
But the opportunity of it all, like there was really nothing to think about. Like that was an A1 no brainer. So that happened then. It kind of all came together in the weeks that followed. And yeah, was it an adjustment? Yes, and it still is. Like I'm still figuring it out and trying to find a degree of comfort and finding my own voice and just the rhythm and how all that works. I mean, thankful that Ellie and I have gotten to know each other from just being on the road over the years as colleagues and stuff at certain points of the year where you get to spend some time with him when we're off covering whatever game or playoff series. So that already at least was there. There's a bit of a foundation that way. But for myself, coming from a TV background where you're so used to everything there's a production element to it that's pre-planned well in advance, and you've got maybe typically at max a minute to kind of tell the story, and in some cases you've got as little as 10-12 seconds to tell your story. And now you're going to this different platform and medium, as you say, altogether. It's like I just the first thought was like, I hope I have enough to say. Thankfully, Elliotte always does. So you're right. When in doubt, just hand the ball over to him, and he's going to gain some good yardage for you. So that's been an interesting thing, and also just as my role reporting or working rinkside, like in my brain. Certainly when speaking publicly, because naturally we all, human nature is to judge and have opinions on things internally. But for my job, it's always when I would come on the air, it was, this is what I've been told. This is what this person is saying. Like, this is what I know as fact. And you as the viewer take it in as going, that was interesting. I don't like that they said that. That was not interesting, right? Like it's up to you to kind of decide. So that element of it to kind of have an opinion on it and to come out and to really take a stance on something that happened is still very much something I'm learning to adapt and embrace. And it's never going to be a situation where, well, I need to have an opinion on it, so I've got to start yelling about something, right? Because the viewer, the listener can see through phoniness from a mile away. I know that's never going to be part of the equation, but just a different wrinkle and a completely different role. I just felt it was a really exciting opportunity and a challenge. I thought it was just the right time to try to embrace. So even though it's been about 2 months now, we've been at it, like it's night and day in terms of my comfort level from when we first started. But still, I feel there's like so much room to go. I mean, I could say the same on the TV side. Like you're still always trying to evolve and to get better and to push yourself into different areas and ways of thinking than previously. And I'm sure, with the podcast over time, it'll be no different.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I gotta ask, did you listen to the 32 Thoughts podcast before you were the?
Oh, yeah,
were a host?
yeah. Yes,
so
I could probably like. What's that?
Now you're kind of listening to yourself like, oh yeah, this is a bit weird.
Right. And that's the thing. Like typically I don't watch back a ton of what I do on the TV side. And so the kind of instinctual feeling when the podcast started was like, well, I'm not going to listen to this anymore. Like I've already listened to it. I was part of it. But certainly as in the early stages here, I thought, no, you know what, it's probably good just to listen, because it's such a new thing for me. Like it's what, it's easier said than done. And I've got a whole new, not that I didn't before, but a whole new level of respect for like guys like yourself, those that do podcasts on a regular basis, the longer form type discussion, to make it all flow. It's one thing to have, a conversation, but to make it flow from one topic to the next, and to kind of have it all meshed together. And certainly those that, have done talk radio for years and years and years, that's all things where, it sounds like it's so easy when you got it on in your car or in your earphones or whatever. But now when you're the guy sitting there at the microphone and, okay, it's time to transition to something else, or how you want to guide the ship. Yeah, it's a completely different ball game when you're in that scenario. So all things I have learned and are still very much learning, but it's part of the fun, I think, too.
And are you going into the studio to record it, or do you guys do it virtually? Or
no, we do it virtually. Yeah, like
Nice.
I've got my mic here, and so we set up, because our producer Dom Shermatti, he's out of Vancouver, right? So
Okay.
we are all at different parts of the country when
Right.
we record this thing, other than the occasional time we're on the road together. But typically, yeah. So it's nice to do it at home and to be comfortable in that sense. But yeah, and the way we have it set up, like we don't see each other either. It's all
Okay.
audio all the time. But it doesn't feel disjointed. I don't think at the time. Hopefully, it doesn't come across that way for those that listen to it. But as I say, Dom does a really good job of making it sing, because there's been times where as you go through recording it and you're like, oh man, that was choppy. There was stops and starts to that, and then as he puts his magic touch on it, you're like, thank God we have Dom. So
Yeah. I was definitely hoping you guys would see each other, and just Elliott's going at it on his phone, something he's
right.
about to break something, and you're all like,
right.
Okay,
Well,
we'll take a break.
yeah, well, but there has been times, right? Just the nature of his line of work, where you're in the middle of
Yeah.
recording and he's in the middle of saying something, and it's like all of a sudden he stops and he goes, "Hold on a sec, I got to take this." And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, and then he gets back and you're like, "Oh, what was it? What would you listen
Yeah.
to?"
Right.
Oh, that's so good. I mean, obviously we're I mean, I don't want to say we're at quite the level of the 32 Thoughts podcast.
We're getting there. Very close.
Yeah, it's in the mix. It's in the mix. But let's shift your thoughts to the Ottawa Senators now. Would you say the atmosphere around the Sens has changed since you first started covering the team to this point in time now?
So for when I first started covering, oh my gosh, yeah, it's funny.
Okay, I mean, let's say in the last since Pierre Dorion left until now.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's
that's
a fair time
yeah.
frame.
Yeah, well, I mean, right. It's a fair one to point at, because different regime, right? And the change at GM came not long after the change in ownership too. So yeah, in a lot of ways, it's been very different, certainly from the top. And now having Ian and Sly in the PR department, that's been a different change as well.
Yeah.
And it's been great. Like I'm so happy for them, and I believe the organization are in a really good spot with them there. But it's also just kind of strange, because for years, both those guys, like, they would be the ones that you would sit there at the rink with and hash out, geez, like you would talk through just what the issues you're seeing or hearing with the team. Like, we were our own kind of confidants, and just kind of discussing privately kind of where we thought things were at with the team and what was going to come next. But you can't really do that now, right? They're on the other side. So selfishly, it was like it was a bittersweet thing for me at first, realizing that those days were gone a little bit. But all those things kind of add to the different feel now. And I mean, the on ice stuff, we're seeing signs that it's coming. And I know for Sens fans, you got to be feeling it's a long time coming, which good for them. And we'll see if this is sustainable as the season goes on here. But just a different feel. I think you could tell with a lot of the front office staff, like, that was, for a period of time there, that was a really tough environment for them to be in, with how it was run. the people that were in charge, and I'm not here to speak ill of those that aren't here or part of the organization any longer. But that was a fact. It was hard. It was really tough circumstances, and you can see why. It took a while for some tangible results to be seen on the ice. The philosophical standpoint of the organization, because the working environment didn't breed success and longevity. So it seems like things are in a better path there now. I really have been impressed with Michael Andlauer and how he has gone about things in the year plus that he's been at the helm. Steve Staios, I mean, very calculated, very measured. I don't believe he's someone who's just gonna let everybody in on what he's thinking, and it's an open door policy, which is very fine. For a while there, that was part of the problem, is that too much stuff around Ottawa got out into the public, and it made things uglier than it needed to be. Like, that's probably a good shift there. So all those things being said, yeah, there's no question it's different, and it's what you'd expect when you have pretty key roles going through changes, a number of them, and the head coach as well. Naturally, there's going to be a different environment and atmosphere around the group, and I believe at this juncture, the vast majority of it, if not all of it, is for the better going forward.
Now, you touched on it a little bit, but I just kind of want to maybe get some more, I guess, insight from you on this little bit. But 11 games in the season, Ottawa sits at 6-5-0, and from a fan perspective, they look better than their record currently indicates. But how are you feeling about the Sens right now, and is that your vibe as well?
Yeah, like, it just, nothing I've really seen so far like suggests that, well, it's a bit of a mirage. Like, there's no real, you've got the red blanket kind of going and playing tricks on you at all. Like, there's a lot of things of what they're doing that appears to be sustainable. I mean, maybe Adam Gaudette scoring 6 goals in 5 games, maybe that's one that's not totally sustainable over the course of the season, but I think it speaks to a player that clearly is empowered by the situation that he's in, and is just flat out on a heater too. But I think there's still going to be nights where maybe not as extreme in Colorado, where they were leaking chances left, right, and center. But I think there's still going to be nights, as expected, as they kind of go through this process here of being a different type of team, a different caliber of team, where things are going to go wrong. You're going to see Travis on the bench. He's going to be frustrated. He'll be frustrated in his post-game comments. The players will be. The fans will be going, why are we seeing this again? I thought this was behind us. But it's never a linear trajectory that this thing goes on. But as I say, like, you're seeing glimpses again of the way the top guys are playing. And I really thought it was fascinating when Travis talked about it. I think it was last week at some point, about everyone talks about a 200-foot game, and the reason is, like, in a lot of ways it's all connected, right? And Jason York, the former player, a member of another podcast in the market, we won't mention it though. But anyway, I don't know if you saw it. He did a really neat breakdown of the role Gaudette played on Saturday, not only on his goal, but the one that Tkachuk scored to make it 2-0 against Seattle. And I think that speaks perfectly to just Green's whole idea about how everything is connected. And I think for a long time, the way this team played, there wasn't a lot of connectivity. There was at times offensively, but the rest of the ice, there was a lot of disconnect. So the fact that you're seeing more encouraging signs of that is a good thing. And then the fact that they're getting competent goaltending here for the most part. I mean, this has been, how big has it been for Anton Forsberg to string together some good starts after what happened there against LA early on. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, you're holding your breath every time the puck goes his way. But he's settled down, and it's just a good reminder that you can't jump to conclusions one way or another, good or bad, 4 games in or 2 starts in for a goalie, whatever it may be. So that's helped settle things. And I think just the way Travis has gone about, for a long time, as you guys all know, like, the top guys there, like, as much as they said all the right things about, we want to be playing the right way, like, they were able to get away with a lot, like there wasn't a lot, their leashes weren't tugged on too tight. Well, I think those days are over now, and it's not about now threatening or anything like that from the new head coach, but just understanding of him coming in, going, if you guys want to keep playing the way that you were, like, tell me how that's worked out for you to this point, and understanding as a group that, yeah, I think you're right, and Travis has said that too about there was some good self-reflection, I think, as he was getting to know all the players over the summer, about that this is, they realized they were part of the problem as much as they're paid to do damage offensively. They recognized that how they were doing things at certain times of the games, and the decision making and poor puck management and all that was all factoring into results that didn't lead them to where they wanted to get to. So that's all encouraging. As you say, it's still early days here, but you look at the fact that you give the Rangers all they can handle, and you pick yourself up from that after getting nothing out of it, and you shut out Seattle on the second night of a back-to-back. Like, I think that's the sign of a good team that doesn't let a tough result spiral. No different from the brutal night in Colorado, and you come home and lay the boots to Seattle, right? That's typically a sign, I think, of a good team, or one that's going in the right direction, where those tough moments don't balloon into something much more critical and damaging over the season. Yeah, certainly. Like, you're always looking for those types of stories, like, because it's current, and I think there's good interest there. Obviously, like the Gaudette one is a really intriguing one too, just given where his path has been and the history with Travis Green, and you go through the lineup from there, right? Like the ageless wonder of Claude Giroux, and the impact that he's had and how he's continued to play. Like, there's plenty of good stories here, and typically that is the case when you've got a team that's starting to have a little bit of success. Like, how comfortable Josh Norris has looked after maybe the first couple of games now. I think that's been one of the biggest things for them, is that he hasn't looked tentative after as the injury history he's had there with the shoulder. The fact that nothing seems to be holding him back now. He looks like the guy that was on pace to score 40 a couple of years ago, which is a great sign for Ottawa. Maybe one of the most important ones, beyond kind of the blossoming of someone like Shane Pinto here. I know he's still out with injury, but the fact that he was skating on Monday is at least a good sign that he's on the right track, after he had just disappeared for like a week, and you're like, oh man, what's coming here now? So yeah, your mind's always thinking about little things like that, but and it's just how the schedule's worked out. Like, I haven't had an Ottawa broadcast yet, and my first one's not till the end of the month, when Vancouver's here on a Saturday night. So I've got to wait here patiently on the sideline before I get a chance to work an Ottawa game here at home.
Yeah, it's yeah, I guess we haven't been on Hockey Night in Canada, at least not at home recently. I didn't even clock that. Yeah, so I guess one last question here for you, Kyle, and thanks again for coming on tonight. Is that you've touched on a few of the Senators players that have had promising starts to the year. Of the Sens newcomers that arrived this offseason, who do you think has had the biggest impact so far?
Well, I think it's hard to say someone other than Gaudette right now, only because of the production. Like, from a number standpoint, it's easy to say him, but even though he hasn't been around the team the last little while for family reasons, and you hope everything's okay, I would say David Perron would probably be another candidate, only because again, the fact that he hasn't been around the group and hasn't been playing the last little bit, but yet when you're players in the room are asked about, kind of what feels different in the early going and how they're able to play a different brand. Like the amount of times just unprompted his name gets brought up, just the influence that he's had given his winning background and the success that he had in St. Louis and just how long he's been doing it in the NHL. I think that speaks to, a guy that's come in and to say, he hasn't suited up for as many games because he's got more important things going on right now to tend to, but you can tell that already he's left an impression in that room there that's still, for the core, very much a young and impressionable team. So, when the time is right for him to get back into the mix, that's only going to boost the levels of everyone further, because you can, just the sense that he's been a key central piece in the early going for this group, and someone that I think a lot of those young players are gravitating towards right away.
And someone
he still leads the team in even strength Corsi, even though he's only played about 5 games.
There you go. That's right. So that counts for something.
Yeah. I was gonna say, and a lot of Sens fans really didn't like Perron after last season, and the hit
Isn't
on Zoom.
Funny?
And now we're all, rooting for the guy and hoping everything's good in his personal life and he can come back and have a good rest of the season when he does return. And on that note, I we have a couple minutes. I just wanted to ask, do you have any hot take or bold prediction for the Sens this season? It could be Gaudette scoring 50 goals. It could be Forsberg getting at least 15 shutouts this season. Something ridiculous.
Oh, man. That is great. I don't know, bold predictions. I don't know. Well, I know I was under the gun here because on the podcast I do with Elliotte, when we did the beginning of the season, I said that the Senators were not going to make the playoffs. So I've got to stick by that one, as good as they've looked. And as I said, I'm happy to be wrong. But I've got to stick. There's no waffling here. So that was one I threw out early on, even though I'm not one for the predictions, but I understand the role that it all plays in the grand scheme of things. You know what? I think I'll say Tkachuk hits 40 goals. I don't know if that's a big prediction, but I mean, he's kind of been knocking at the door.
It'd be a milestone for him. So,
yeah. But he's kind of been, on that path, right? And I remember a few years ago having a conversation with DJ. This would have been in 2021, and he said to me, he goes, Tkachuk can be a 40 goal guy in the league. And I remember looking at him like, seriously? And he said, yeah. And it's not that I doubted him. It's just, you think about, obviously a very effective player, but 40 goals in the National Hockey League, that is a very difficult thing to do, even with now the offensive numbers kind of on the uptick the last few years. But it's looked like, DJ was onto something there, because he's been close and I think has got a chance again this year to get there.
Well, looking forward to seeing you covering the Sens game against Vancouver later this month, and hopefully there's a lot more storylines for you to cover, and hopefully mostly positive ones. That's what I'm gonna have my fingers crossed.
Frankly, Kyle, I hope you're wrong. I really hope that your prediction is wrong.
Happy to be wrong. I don't take any offense by that, man. Trust me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it, and good luck the rest of the way this season.
Okay, great. My pleasure. Thanks, guys. All the best to you too.
Thank you.